This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Why is Everyone Yelling with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host Lindsay and I'm so grateful you're here today. This is a podcast for parents or anybody helping raise kids, and my hope is that you leave each episode with a little something you can apply to your everyday life. Today you're listening to episode 33 and I'm talking with Wendy Demer. Wendy has been working with kids for 20 years. Her passion is working with children and self-development. She is certified in child meditation and has a passion to teach others how to live a more balanced, joyful life through meditation, self-development, and increasing spiritual awareness. Okay, so in this episode, Wendy gives us some tips and strategies for helping our kids deal with stress and anxiety that might come with everyday life. One of my favorite things she shares with us in this episode is a specific meditation that kids can do at night to calm them down for the evening. And I just really loved that part of the episode. I'm going to try it with my kids tonight. Actually, last night I tried the very simple 3 counts breathing in, 3 counts breathing out, deep breathing exercise with my kids, and my oldest just lost it. He was bouncing off the walls. He was like, I am not calming down. I'm getting more excited with this. So we're going to try again tonight. This episode left me feeling motivated to bring in some of these daily practices into our own home, and I hope that you walk away with some ideas and techniques for your own family as well. Before we get started talking with Wendy, I want to thank Previnex for supporting this episode of the podcast. Previnex is where I get all of my vitamins, supplements, and protein powder, and they have quality ingredients that are clinically proven and real benefits with also some real impact. Every bottle of their children's chewable multivitamins that is purchased, they donate a bottle to malnourished children around the world. They source the highest quality ingredients in the most clinically effective and beneficial forms. We use their protein powder in smoothies every day, and a lot of times I drop a couple of the multivitamins in smoothies as well for my kids, though some of my kids just love their vitamins and just eat them how they are. So if you're looking for a good place to get vitamins or supplements or vitamins for your kids, look no further than Previnex. Go to Previnex.com, use the code Lindsay15, and you'll get 15% off at checkout. All right, friends, if you enjoy this episode of the podcast, please consider leaving us a quick rating and review so that new potential listeners can find us. Enjoy my conversation with Wendy. All right, well, today on the podcast, we have Wendy Demer on the show. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to talking to you and grateful that you've had me on, that you're having me on.
I am really excited as well. And, you know, today the topic that we're going to talk about just goes so nicely with the episode that we put out last week. So I'm really excited to enter this conversation and give parents and teens and teachers and anybody tools for managing stress and anxiety. So Wendy, can you share with us a little bit about your history with teaching? I know you were a teacher for 25 years.
Yes, I've been working with children for over 20 years probably. And throughout that time, I've just noticed more and more pressure put on our kids, and they were suffering with more worries and fears and anxiety. And also their self-esteem and self-love and self-awareness seem to be decreasing. So kids have always been my passion. It's the only thing I've ever done. And mental health and emotional health is a passion of mine. So I wanted to do everything I could to supply them with the strategies to help manage and deal with those worries.
What did you teach?
I worked in special education.
Okay.
I taught everywhere from kindergarten to high school. But then I started teaching empowerment classes in and outside of the education system. My journey began with all my own health issues. So I I didn't sleep at night. I felt like I was run over by a truck when I woke up in the morning, and just severe body pain and headaches. So I'd been going to specialist after specialist, and they couldn't find physically anything wrong with me. And I finally came across this lady, and she said, no, everything is stress related. There's nothing physically wrong with you. And she suggested meditation and a wonderful book by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. It's like a 12-week program, and you do artist dates, morning walks, morning pages, and writing exercises kind of to recover your creative self. And it changed my life. So I'm like, okay, I have to teach these to the kids, because they're at the time, and still there's very little informal education that teaches those kids how to deal with anxiety and fear and that kind of thing. I think we seem to teach children about everything except themselves. And I believe that their mind, heart, and body are as equal of importance as the academics. So,
that's really powerful, because I don't remember ever learning about that growing up in school. I interviewed a nutritionist recently on my other podcast, and we were talking about that too. It's like, I don't really ever remember learning so much about like how powerful it is, the kinds of foods and what I put into my body as fuel.
oh yeah.
And
Yes.
so it's like that paired with like how to manage emotional like stress. Both
Yes.
of those two things as an adult now in the workforce and with kids myself, I'm like, those are like two of the most important things you need to manage everyday life. And I don't know why it's not more of a priority in the school system.
Yes, and that is one of my mission, is to get these strategies taught within the school. They need to be part of the curriculum. They absolutely have to, because and it's a win-win situation. They teach this, and then the parents reinforce it at home. The parents' life is so much smoother because the kids are able to, become aware of their feelings and emotions, and more importantly, communicate them in a healthy way instead of lashing out. And when I teach these in the school, like, you can't believe how much smoother the teacher's day goes. She's like, so it's like a win-win. But yeah, that's going to be my next thing, is trying to get these into the school system.
Okay, so you have two of your own kids?
I do. They were my guinea pigs.
Yeah, tell me how
For
being
years.
a mom made you realize, like, as a mom, I feel like when we go through our own health issues, like you were talking about, you had all these aches and pains and you kept going to doctors, getting it figured out. I always find it really difficult to be present with my kids when I am distracted by my own worries and fears. So this conversation, I feel like, goes so much, not just for teaching your kids, but teaching yourself how to manage that stuff, because I don't want anything in my life to distract me from being present when it's time to be present with my kids. But when I get in my head with all those fears and worries and anxieties that I get, I do find myself detaching from my kids because I'm almost like so self-focused,
Yes, you are. Yeah. Yeah, that's why what I love, the strategies I teach, because the parents and children do them together, right? Because the best way to parent is being present. Because when we're not, it's like as simple as if you're driving your child to a extracurricular activity and they're in the back seat and they're telling you the most important part of their day and they're so excited, and chances are you're not even listening to what they're saying because you're worried about stress and what needs to be done and this and that. But children, they're amazing. They know when you're not listening, and that's when their self-esteem starts to go down, because, well, I must not be important. Even the most important person in the world to me isn't listening to me. That's why one of the things that I always encourage and I love is family circle time. And it is the best. It's like once a week, and you try and keep it the same time every day and every week. Meet as a family, sit on the floor, start with just 2 minutes of breathing. You can put on some calm, relaxing music, or I'll tell you in a minute a great way to do the breathing. But and then have each one go around. It's not a time to criticize or talk about behaviors or what's not getting done in the house. It's just a time to be conscious listeners and listen to our child, because we're all so busy that sometimes I feel they don't have the opportunity to say, hey, I'm getting bullied at school or whatever. So it just provides an opportunity for everybody to talk. And you can even have the speaker hold a object, and the only person who gets to speak is the person who's holding it, so we don't interrupt, right?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. Because I can just picture my kids going crazy. But you know what? Kindergarten teachers do it. They get the attention, and they get the attention for that one kid to have their moment. So
Yeah.
I oftentimes think about that. I'm like, what teacher qualities can I bring into my parenting today to get my kids to actually listen?
Yes. Yeah. It's just all the little baby steps, and everything that I teach is easily incorporated to use in the moment, because we have to live in the moment. I know we don't because we're so busy, but when you're in the present moment is where you experience the less stress, because stress comes from things that have happened in the past events, and stress comes from the what ifs. Like, oh no, what if this happens? What if that happens? And 90% of the time it never happens. So all you do is destroy your present peace, your present moment peace.
So how old were your kids when you started getting into the meditation and figuring out this way of life?
Well, well, I'm trying to think. I think when we lived in Regina, so that would have been, yeah, probably about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Like it's been a part of their life. And hey, so there's been many times when my daughter would say, "Mom, cut the spiritual crap." She's like, can I just do this without making it better? Can I just vent? Like, no, yeah, it's been a part of, and they've traveled all over by themselves. Like my daughter was 15 in Seoul, like South Korea.
Wow.
And my son, grade 11, was in Austria. And these things are what got them through culture shock.
Oh, that's so cool.
Got them through everything, like the breathing and the meditations, the affirmations, positive self-talk, gratitude. People just think they're nothing, but they're game changers. Like it's just the little things you do. Like even when I talk about a teacher in their 6-hour teaching time, it would take 15 minutes out of their day.
Yeah.
To get all these strategies in, and your days are so smooth.
So let's go into actually implementing meditation and helping our kids cope with anxiety and stress in everyday life. And I don't want, some parents might be like, oh my gosh, like it sounds so peaceful and perfect. And, I know that can be hard with I have 4 little kids, like that can be really challenging, but anything we can do to add a little bit of peace into our home, I want to pursue.
Yes. So breathing, breath work is always our anchor. It brings you back to the present moment. It releases tension. And the thing with breathing, though, is it has to be practiced before. Like you can't, if your kid's in the middle of a breakdown or whatever, you're like, okay, breathe, do the 3-count breathing. No. But you have to do it before, and then their body is used to it and they know how it makes them feel. And the biggest thing, I do it every day throughout my day. Before my feet get out of bed in the morning, I do 3-count breathing, and it's just in through your nose for the count to 3, hold your breath for 1, and then out 2, 3. So it's in 3, hold for 1, and out 2, 3. And it feels delicious. Like you just feel all of the anxiety leave your body. And when you watch your kids doing it, it's the most amazing thing. So even they do 5 cycles of 3-count breathing before they get out of bed. You parents do it, everybody should do it, because we often don't have time to do a 10-minute meditation, right? Because we're all so busy. So simply starting with your breath, it just starts your day on a peaceful note. It's like, like how you start your day is how you live your day, how you live your day is how you live your life.
I love that.
And you'll find with you're so much more prepared to deal with not getting sucked into the negative vortex, and how you react and respond to people is much more easier. It's like at the end of the day, you still have to feed the dog, make supper, get your kids to everything, but everything shifts down a few notches, and you're able to do it and enjoy it. So but breath work doesn't start for me in the morning. And for your kids, you can do it with them in the morning before they get out of bed. Make it part of their routine, just like brushing their teeth. Do it before they go to bed, because they can let all the day's worries go. But I love ending the day with kids with meditation. It's a bedtime story. We'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, breath work I do when I'm having writer's block, I stop and breathe. When I'm feeling irritable, I stop and breathe. When I'm feeling stressed, I stop and breathe. It's always my anchor. It's the one tool we have access to every day.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And I love the 3-count breathing because it's easy for kids to do. It holds their attention. There's lots of other things that are 8, 4, 5, in, 3, I don't know. But I've found with all of my kids, when I say my kids, I mean the hundreds of kids that I call my kids, my students and my own, that's always works. Because of course I've tried over 15 years many different strategies, but that one works every time.
It's such a simple tool that is so underutilized, and I don't know why. So let's talk about strategies and ways. We talked about starting off the day with the kids. I mean, I don't know about most people listening, but my kids usually just get up and you know they're up because they come running down the hallway.
Yeah, that was mine too.
But yeah. I try to like you said, brushing your teeth and things like that. I try to be like, okay, we're going to brush our teeth. We're going to eat. We're going to brush our teeth. We're going to make our beds before we watch a show or do anything like that before school. So to make that part of the process, I think sounds like a really smart way to go into hey, you're going into school today, and there's probably going to be some things that might feel kind of hard, regardless of, maybe it might be academics or friend stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's do this now so that when you get to school, you can implement it into your day if you need to.
Yeah. And my students report back, they'll so many children are terrified of public speaking, and when they have to get up in front of their class and do a presentation, and I'm like, you just sit in your desk, do your breathing, nobody even knows you're doing it, and it'll just relax you. And this is the other thing we'll get to, is affirmations and self-talk. Don't sit there and say, oh my God, they're going to laugh at me, I'm going to fail. This is all part of it, is the affirmations and the power of our thoughts and negative and positive self-talk, and I teach them how to change that around. But even I work with a lot of athletes as well. I teach mental preparation, and breath work are the very first thing I teach them as well, because it gets them into their ideal performance state, and it teaches them during the competition of their game, if they lose focus or something happens to take them out of their zone, I teach them ideas how to get back in. But that's a whole different podcast, the sport and mental prep stuff. But yeah, it works like a charm. They even athlete or my cheer, she was competing in worlds and had a fall, so she was terrified to go back out. And we worked. Yeah, the stage fright, everything. She just wanted to quit, and she had made it all the way to worlds. But I worked with her, and I do a centering thing, and I do stop, and we tried different things, and it worked. She liked the stop, just the word stop, and then breathing and changing it to a positive affirmation, right? And she got back out there, and yeah.
So how did you start working with athletes then?
Well, it just morphed into that. I don't even know, because I have my kinesiology degree as well. Okay. But I started with the kids, because they've always been my passion, and I'd way rather teach kids than adults because they're so safe, and I love them so much. And I believe children are our greatest teachers. Yeah, they absolutely are. And then I started teaching adults. I do workshops and I do seminars, and I go into the corporate world to help them balance stress and lead a more joyful life. And then I don't know, I've started looking at the sport and mental prep, and I believe you can have all the physical ability in the world, but if you're not mentally strong, you can't get to that next level. The mental part, visualization, all that is such a huge part. So I basically revamp the ones that I teach, the classes and strategies that I teach to my children and adults and teens, I just reworked it so it works for adults, and it's been so positive. People love it. So
let's talk about helping kids understand their emotions.
yes, and that is why I think meditation is the best thing for that. Because, our kids are constantly bombarded by sights and sounds and screens, and all that frantic energy needs to be counterbalanced with stillness. And stillness is where, when you clear your mind, this is for all of us, you clear your mind, and then you're allowed to see what's going on. We can't, with all that monkey chatter in that mind, we don't know. So when children meditate, it helps them to understand their feelings and what they're feeling. I mean, I have children and adults sometimes come out in tears because they've just felt, so it was the healthy tears, because we have to be allowed to feel. Like, same with our nation and everything that's going on. I feel that we have to be allowed to feel in order to heal. And we teach our children to befriend their emotions, bring their emotions in, breathe through them, feel them. And when you do that, they leave their bodies, right? So they don't keep it inside. Like, it's okay. It's not our job. I know it's our job. And you ask any parent, we want our children to be happy. I get that. We all want our children to be happy, but we have to teach them to face life exactly as it is, and that rejection is inevitable, but that should never affect their sense of self-worth.
How do we teach them that?
Well, it's just through, I believe affirmations are one of the biggest things, because they're the foundation to help them grow and to change negative thoughts to positive thoughts. And when you first start with affirmations, they have to be something believable. But we have to just encourage them and praise their efforts more than their achievements all the time as well. Like, it comes so much from us as parents and teachers. When I work with kids with anxiety, they're the bravest kids of all, because they go out into the world every day and face their fears.
It's interesting, yeah, because my kids are also different. My oldest is definitely one that tends to lean a little bit more towards the anxious side, and it's interesting to see what their behavior does. Like, when the anxiety is creeping in, though he might not recognize it as anxiety, I see that misbehavior totally correlating with like a big thing coming up or something he would be nervous about, and he doesn't even realize he's feeling those feelings. And as an adult who struggles with anxiety, I see it so clearly in him, whereas my husband doesn't really struggle with anxiety. He doesn't see that connection,
Yes.
So I feel like if you're a parent or a teacher or an adult who doesn't struggle with anxiety, it's really hard to make that connection with a kid who's dealing with it, because your brain hasn't walked through that.
Yes. And that's exactly how my house was too, because I still do. I mean, all of this stuff doesn't get rid of anxiety. It gives you tools. It gives you tools so that you can cope with it and manage it. So anxiety is not a stop sign.
Yeah.
You can still go on with your life. And I was the same thing. And you have to kind of build the relationship and the connection first, which you have, right? And because you can see the signs. But yeah, and then you just give them the tools to manage it. So you can say, oh, come on, let's just go over here and maybe do some breathing for a bit. Or, the meditation at bedtime is the best thing, honestly. And in my book, I've wrote all the meditations. Sometimes people get a little worried, but they're not affiliated with any religion whatsoever. They're as safe as a bedtime story, total non-denominational. And each meditation that I wrote goes with the strategy that we're working with that week, like with the kids. So I'll do an affirmation meditation, and you do a relaxation first. And these are what help with the anxiety. And then we'll go maybe to, like, we hold a lot of stress and tension when we're anxious in our neck and shoulders. So they breathe through it. What is it telling you today? And it works wonderfully. And one of my favorite ones, and the kids love it, and my husband uses it too, well, lots of adults use it, is it's called the floating bubble meditation. So it goes with the chapter on self-talk and the power of our thoughts. And I teach children how to recognize, because sometimes they've been doing it for so long, oh, I'm not good enough, I suck, I can't do this. It becomes part of their reality and they don't even realize they're doing it. So I teach children how to stop that once they're in that negative cycle with either centering or the word stop, and then you follow it up with an affirmation. Well, maybe I suck at this, but I'll learn something new. Or, I'll do my best. I'm going to learn something new today, like those affirmations. But the floating bubble one is like you do the relaxation, like a body, like a guided relax their body. And then I have a magical bubble come and pick them up. They're lying in a beautiful park. And you have to use, because children all learn differently, kinesthetic, auditory, tactile. So you have to incorporate all their senses into the meditation so that every child can get it. So then I have this this bubble take them up through the clouds, and they go through a beautiful archway, a cloud shaped like an archway, and on the other side is hundreds of bubbles, different colors, but they're thought bubbles. So they're the thought bubbles that they tell themselves. And I say, now go over and pop with your finger all the negative self-talk bubbles, go and pop them. And they pop them, and then they get to float through the positive ones. And every time they bump, their bubble bumps into the other one, it reminds them that they are enough, they are brave, that, that kind of thing. So I love the meditations just because it's changed my life. And if you were to see their faces after, like children love to meditate because it's their senses explode, they explore their imagination. And when they're done, they look at me and their eyes are like, what was that? Because they feel so peaceful and relaxed. And
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that makes so much sense to me too, because my kids love it when I do pretend stories at bedtime. Yes. And I just like make up stories, and, it usually ends with them like dancing on the roof with their friends, or, like riding a horse around the city or whatever. So I'm just picturing my 4-year-old like laying there with his eyes closed with a big smile on his face, picturing himself up in a bubble, like bouncing around. And it is true, especially at bedtime. And I think that sounds like a really good strategy for kids who struggle with being scared at night too, because that's a big thing for little kids. Like, I don't want to sleep in my bed, I'm scared. And to be able to do a meditation where that kind of like calms them down makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, every single night, like that became part for my children. We did, they picked which story they wanted, and then I would make up a meditation and read it to them. And it absolutely helps them transition into a peaceful night's sleep and forget about the worries. Like, if their friends were mean to them at school, or they had a fight, or they didn't do well on a test, or fighting with their siblings. It's just a way to let all that go. And honestly, I've had hundreds of parents email me and message me that their child slept through the night, or they went to bed on their own. And that's the only thing that matters to me.
Yes,
that's
so
the most important thing that I'm helping. It's all I want to do.
Okay, so what are some tools and strategies or tips that we can leave parents with so that they can feel empowered to implement this?
Okay, well, the breathing, and that's the 1, 2, 3 count breathing. Gratitude is a perfect family thing to do because the parents will be less stressful, because it's proven you can't be angry and grateful at the same time, and it immediately changes your from a worry or fear to love. Because they have to remember, gratitude is an emotion. It's like that warm feeling you get inside you when you're kind to another person. So around your dinner table at night, everybody can go around the table and say something they're grateful for. If parents are busy and they didn't have time to have dinner together, they can ask their child at bedtime, just tell me 3 things you're grateful for. But make sure that they realize, like, it's being grateful to see the sunrise or drink hot chocolate, more not like material things. And our children's greatest mentors are their parents, so we can mimic, right? Like, oh, look, like, show them how grateful you are for the sunrise, the mountains, being outside. Nature's my favorite way, because it's my favorite thing to show it. But you can also if you do the circle time that I talked about, you can go around there, say something you're grateful for. Another one that I love is having a gratitude jar. So every day, each person in your family writes one thing they're grateful for and puts it in the jar. And then at the end of the month, you can all sit and go through them.
I
Lots of
like
different.
that every day. Like to get like, oh, put it in there before you leave, and then to see like
Yeah,
what things are repeated and like what's a theme. That's kind of fun.
it is, because it helps you to understand what's going on in your children's lives. Like sometimes we don't know because they don't tell us. I know my son was so sensitive. He was, he had troubles in high school and stuff because he was just so sensitive, but he would never talk about it. So it was hard because I knew something was going on. So it was harder for him. My daughter's much more open. Her emotions are in her sleeves. She's like, I remember when she was, I don't know, 4 or 5, she comes into the kitchen, she puts her hands on her hips, she looks at me, she said, "Mommy, I think you need to meditate." I go, "Why?" "Well, you've been a little grouchy," she said, "a little irritable." I'm like, okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that as a parent, though. I've just come to realize that I can literally, at this point, I can just say to my kids, like, I'm having a really hard day. Or like, I yelled because like I'm so frustrated right now. And I just think that like we have to remove that. Like I'm mom, and that's what I am, to like, I'm mom and a human, and our kids can understand those emotions they see us going through a little bit more. Like, okay, I get it, mom. I get it. I feel mad sometimes too.
Yeah, and that's so important that you said that, because we also have to allow our children to break. We
Yeah.
have to allow them to have bad days, because so many times we just no, stop crying, let's go, we got to go here. We don't let them feel. And they have to, in order to change. Like, the world right now is such a fearful and unkind place. And I believe the way to change that is through our children, because the only way to change it is through the youth, because they're our future leaders. So they need to be able, and that's through the compassion and through connection. So we have to allow our children to feel and express if we want the world to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I struggle with some of this is like, my husband's kind of more of like, we got to do this. These are the things that have to get done. And I think he
Yeah.
sometimes thinks I'm like so in my feelings and all these things. And I'm like, I know, but it'll help the house run smoother. And, I know that people listening, like, I know that people are so busy, and I get it. But it's like, even if sometimes it's hard to make those moments happen, I do think that it's worthwhile and it's worth trying. And some kids, it'll be easier than others. That's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's not an overnight fix. It's something that has to be practiced, right? Like, it's something that you need to make part of your day. And the breathing might not be easy for them when they first start, but they'll get it. It's like learning anything new. Like, it's like just the same as a new, like soccer or sport or whatever. It's just takes a little bit of time. But I know everybody's so busy. And that is why when I wrote the book, I tried to keep the method simple, that they could use in the moment and make part of their routine.
Okay, so my 2 takeaways right now are the 3 time, 3 breath in, 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
And the bubble story at bedtime.
Yeah. Any meditation, any guided meditation at bedtime. Yeah. And then the gratitude.
The gratitude.
You can implement that in. And then, I don't know, there's so many different things you can do. The circle time, as a family circle time. The self-talk is huge, right? Letting them become aware of how their thoughts affect their beliefs and emotions and fears, and then teaching them how to change that to a positive, change it from, no, I can't do this, into something positive.
I love it.
Positive affirmation or whatever. Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you do guided meditations. Are they recorded? Do you have a podcast with those? Where can people find them?
Yes, I have. So on my website, I have 1 children's and 1 adult meditation that you can listen to there. They're also on YouTube.
Okay.
So you can get them on YouTube, and I'll be adding to YouTube. And so there's that. And also, to help parents, I write a weekly blog, and it covers everything from us for like derailing the judgment train, because that affects our energy so much. And how to talk to kids about anxiety, how to teach compassion to kids, I do grown-up check-ins. There's everything on there that really seems to help a lot of people as well. So
tell everybody what your book is called.
Okay, so my book came about because I had so many parents and teachers reaching out to me on how to help with fears and worries and things that our children are going through, especially with the pandemic and their change of life. I mean, their whole worlds have been turned upside down, and they've been handling it beautifully, really, when you think about what our children have gone through. So everybody kept asking me for ways, so I thought, well, I'm going to put this into a book. So I put everything that I teach and know into this book. It provides, tells you how to talk to your children about anxiety. It goes into more detail about all the strategies we talked about today. There's like 6 or 7 meditations in there.
It's called Empowering Our Future.
Empowering Our Future. It's available on Amazon and Kobo, or you can go to my website and just click on the link there and it'll take you right to Amazon.
Okay, so Wendy, what is the best, most recent book you've read?
Oh, hands down, Untamed, Glennon Doyle.
Oh, yeah, I love that book.
Did you read it?
She started a podcast.
Yes, and I did just see that too.
I haven't listened yet, have you?
No.
What about a kid's book? Do you have a kid's book you recommend? Or like a teen book? Your kids are a little bit older, so you've been through lots of phases.
Well, I have, and I remember all of the books, all of their favorites. I could tell you a few, but you know what? The most important thing is any book that encourages them to read. Like reading is the most important thing. Anything you can find that they enjoy to get them off the screens.
Yeah. Well, that's why the teachers say, I loved it last year. I just kind of I just started having readers in my house, kids that are old enough to read. And I love the message of finding the just right book for you.
Yes. Yeah. And then they read, but we read all the time, and both of our children are big readers. They read all the time, and I think that's just so good. It makes them who they are. My son lives in China right now.
Really?
Yeah.
How old is he?
He is 27.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel good to, I imagine, I'm living this constant battle of being in the present moment, but and also being so scared that it's going to be gone in a blink because, that's what everybody says. And I imagine myself as a parent being very excited to see my kids live out their dreams, but at the same time, you want them close because you want to see them.
I know. It's really hard. That's hard, but they're so happy. Jordy wanted to be an architect since he was 2 years old, or in grade 2. He ordered the Frank a book, and he became an architect and
living in China.
So yeah, he was one of the youngest to get his master's and went over there. And now he's actually coming home the end of June. He's been there 3 years. Well, not home. He's going to somewhere else, but out of China, back to Canada.
Oh, back to Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy, what is your last message that you want to leave with our audience today?
It takes a whole village. All of us just all need to come together. Anxiety is on the rise. The stats right now for adolescents and children are staggering. So we have to do something. We're going to lose a whole, depression. And so I want everybody to come together and start teaching mental and emotional well-being to children. I want these in the schools. And the parents too, it doesn't matter where you get your information or your help or your resources for, but we have to make it is just as important as the academic part.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, friends, thanks for being here today. Thanks, Wendy, for coming on the show. You can learn more about Wendy when you go to wendydemer.com. That's DEMER. Her book is called Empowering Our Youth, Strategies for Enhancing Mental and Emotional Well-Being in Childhood and Youth. You can find this podcast on Instagram. We are Why Is Everyone Yelling? You can find me personally over there on Instagram, Lindsay Hine 626. This podcast is part of the Sandy Boy Productions podcast network. Check us out on Instagram, Sandy Boy Productions. We've got 4 other really great shows in the network as well. We'd love to have you check those out. If you are interested in checking out the multivitamins and supplements and protein powder from Previnex, children's vitamins, go to Previnex.com, use the code Lindsay15 and you'll get 15% off your order. All right, friends, thanks for being here today, and we will see you next week on Why is Everyone Yelling?